delete, commit, push. $180 million gone with 3 mouse clicks. My name is Wesley Thompson, I'm 48 years old, and I just watched my boss's niece destroy 15 years of my work because she thought she knew better than the guy who built it. But here's the thing about corporate revenge, sometimes you don't have to lift a finger. Sometimes you just step aside and let gravity do its work. The conference room at Logiflow Systems smelled like stale coffee and that particular brand of nervous sweat that comes right before someone makes a career-ending mistake. I was sitting at the mahogany table, my laptop open, looking at the system diagram for our main processing engine, the heart of everything that made our supply chain software actually work. Standing at the whiteboard was Ashley Brennan, all 26 years of her fresh Harvard MBA still shiny, pointing a laser pointer at my screen like she was conducting an orchestra. Ashley was CEO Jason Brennan's niece, hired 6 months ago as our new Chief Technology Officer. In those 6 months, she'd managed to use synergy, disrupt, and blockchain in the same sentence at least twice a week. Wesley, she said, that red dot dancing across my diagram like a drunk firefly. I'm looking at the system design and honestly, it's bloated. We need to streamline this for the Apex Industries acquisition. They want lean code, not whatever this is. The room went quiet. My team, 6 engineers I'd trained over the years, stared at their coffee cups. They knew what I knew. Our main processing engine wasn't bloat. It was the reason our platform could handle 50,000 transactions per hour without melting our servers. It was what kept a $45 million annual revenue stream flowing smoothly. Ashley, I said, keeping my voice steady, 22 years in this business teaches you not to get emotional in these situations. That's not bloat, that's our order handling system. Remove that, and response time jumps from 500 milliseconds to 20 seconds. Our biggest clients will walk. She laughed. Not a pleasant sound. Wesley, I appreciate your experience, but Uncle Jason brought me in to modernize this company. Apex wants efficiency, not complexity. Experience. I was 48, not 68. I had a mortgage payment due next week, 2 kids finishing college with tuition bills that kept me awake at night, and apparently a CTO who thought 22 years in the industry was ancient history. She walked over to the admin console that was mirrored on the big screen. My stomach tightened. Jason had given her full admin access on day 1. I'd told him it was like handing a loaded gun to someone who'd never seen one before. He'd just patted my shoulder and said she needed to feel empowered. We're cleaning house, Ashley announced, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Simple, elegant code. That's the future. Ashley, I said, standing up, don't touch that system. If you delete the main engine, our staging environment collapses. We have auto-deployment enabled for the demo with Apex tomorrow. You worry too much, Wesley. That's your problem. You're stuck in the past. She highlighted the entire main processing directory. 15 years of work, hundreds of late nights, code that had saved the company millions in processing costs and kept us competitive when bigger players tried to crush us. And then she did it. Delete, commit, push. The screen flickered. Green text scrolled for a second, then stopped. Done. She actually dusted off her hands like she'd just finished cleaning out a garage. See? Leaner already. The silence that followed was the kind you hear right before a building collapses. Shane Parker, my lead developer, a good kid I'd mentored for 5 years, looked like he was about to lose his lunch. He stared at me with wide eyes, hoping I could fix it. But I couldn't fix it. Not this time. You just deleted the order handling system, I said, sitting back down. A strange calm washed over me. It was the calm of an engineer watching a bridge collapse, knowing exactly why it was happening. The application is now a pretty interface. It can't process orders. It can't verify users. It can't do anything. Ashley turned to me, her face reddening. See, this is exactly what Uncle Jason warned me about. Negativity, resistance to change. You're not a culture fit for the new Logiflow, Wesley. She puffed out her chest. You're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. The room gasped. Shane actually stood up. Ashley, you can't. Sit down, Shane, or you're next. I looked at Ashley. I looked at the screen where my code used to be. I looked at my team, who looked terrified. And then my phone buzzed. It had been buzzing for weeks. Unknown number. I'd been ignoring it because I was loyal. Loyal to Jason, who'd given me a shot 15 years ago when I was just another contractor looking for steady work. Loyal to the team. Loyal to the company that had helped me buy my house, put my kids through school. But loyalty is a two-way street, and I'd just been shown the exit ramp. I picked up the phone. The screen lit up. Apex Industries. Ashley was still talking, something about fresh perspectives and moving forward. She thought she'd crushed me. She was waiting for the tears, for the begging, for the pleas. I need this job speech that never came. I swiped to answer. Wesley Thompson. The voice was smooth, professional. Wesley, this is Brian Mitchell, VP of Engineering at Apex Industries. We haven't heard back regarding our offer. We're finalizing our review of Logiflow tomorrow. Frankly, looking at their documentation, you're the only reason we're still interested. I looked at Ashley. She was smirking, arms crossed, probably thinking I was calling my wife to break the bad news. Yes, I said into the phone, loud enough for everyone to hear. I accept Apex's offer. Ashley's smirk died like a candle in the wind. Who is that? Ashley's voice cracked like a teenager's. I can start immediately, I continued, ignoring her. Actually, my schedule just cleared up unexpectedly. Brian paused on the line. That's fast. Everything okay on your end? Everything's perfect, I said, locking eyes with the CEO's niece. I'll see you in an hour. I hung up, closed my laptop, stood up and unplugged my charger, the cord retracting with that satisfying zip sound. Good luck with tomorrow's demo, Ashley, I said, walking toward the door. I'm sure it'll be educational. I didn't look back. I walked out of that conference room, my footsteps echoing on the polished concrete, leaving behind 15 years of my professional life and a system that was currently bleeding to death in the digital void. Ashley shouted something about security escorts and company property, but I was already doing the math in my head. Without the main processing engine, the user login systems would expire in 90 minutes. The entire admin panel would lock everyone out, including Ashley. She hadn't just fired me, she'd locked herself in a burning building and thrown away the key. The walk to my desk was maybe 60 feet, but it felt like crossing into another country. The open office hummed with its usual Friday afternoon energy. Sales guys were celebrating some quarterly deal. Marketing was debating logo colors. The coffee machine was grinding away in the break room. None of them knew the company was already dead. They were working in a building that was about to collapse, and they couldn't hear the creaking yet. I grabbed a box from the supply closet, one of those welcome to the team boxes they give new hires. The irony tasted like copper pennies. I didn't take much. My personal coffee mug with World's Okayest Dad that my daughter bought me for Father's Day. A photo of both kids at their high school graduations. My noise-canceling headphones that had gotten me through countless late-night coding sessions. I left the company polo shirt hanging on my chair. Left the branded water bottle on my desk. Left the 15-year service plaque they'd given me last month, made of cheap plastic trying to look like marble. Wesley. I turned around. It was Lance Cooper, our systems administrator. Lance looked like he lived in a server room, pale from fluorescent lighting, running on caffeine and determination, wearing a t-shirt that said, "There's no place like 127.0.0.1. He was one of the few people who understood our infrastructure as well as I did, mainly because he got woken up at 3 a.m. when things broke. "Is it true?" Lance whispered, glancing toward the glass-walled conference room where Ashley was still waving her hands around like she was directing traffic. "Did she actually delete the main engine?" "She used the point-and-click interface," I said, dropping my stapler into the box. Thought she was streamlining the code base. Made it leaner, all right. Lance lost what little color he had. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, but the ghost was carrying a pink slip. But the traffic management, the user verification system, everything runs through that engine. If it's gone, the health monitoring will fail, and he checked his watch. About 20 minutes, and then the auto-scaling system will try to spin up new server instances to handle the load, I said, sealing the box with packing tape. But since the base configuration pulls from the main branch, the one Ashley just updated, every new instance will boot up broken. "Infinite crash loop," Lance said, his voice barely audible. "The cloud billing is going to go through the roof. We're talking thousands of servers spinning up and dying every few seconds." "Yep." I popped a stress ball into my jacket pocket. Something to remember this place by. "I have to stop the deployment," Lance said, reaching for his phone with shaking hands. "Don't," I said sharply. He stopped mid-reach. "She fired me explicitly for resistance to change. If you try to roll back her work, you're undermining the CTO. You're resisting her vision." I leaned closer. "Lance, You've got a mortgage and twins starting high school next year. Don't give her a reason to put you in the same boat as me." Lance swallowed hard. He looked at the server status dashboard mounted on the wall. All green lights, like Christmas in July. It was the calm before the red storm, the digital equivalent of that eerie quiet before a tornado hits. So we just let it burn? It's already burning, Lance. We're just waiting for the smoke detectors to start screaming. I picked up my box of 15 years and walked toward the elevator. The office felt surreal, like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. I passed the head of sales high-fiving a junior rep about landing a big quarterly account. That commission check was never going to clear. The company's value was tied to the technology, and the technology was currently eating itself alive. My phone buzzed as I waited for the elevator, a text from Shane. She's trying to run a manual system build, getting error messages everywhere. She's yelling at the computer screen. I deleted the company messaging app from my phone and stepped into the elevator. Through the closing doors, I saw Ashley storming out of the conference room, laptop clutched against her chest like body armor, looking around the office like a general who'd just realized her army had deserted. Our eyes met for a split second through the narrowing gap of brushed steel. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just stood there, holding my box of personal effects, watching her discover what it feels like to be completely, utterly alone with the consequences of your own arrogance. The elevator descended, taking me away from Logiflow Systems for the last time. 20 minutes later, I was standing in the lobby of Apex Industries in downtown Austin. Their building was all glass and steel, with a water feature that probably cost more than Logiflow's entire quarterly marketing budget. The kind of place that whispered, "We have our act together," in architectural language. "Wesley Thompson for Brian Mitchell," I told the receptionist, a professional woman who looked like she'd never seen a system crash in her life. "He's expecting you. Executive floor, 25th level." The elevator was smooth and silent, the kind that doesn't make your ears pop. When the doors opened, I stepped into a world that felt like the opposite of Logiflow's chaos. Brian Mitchell was waiting for me. Mid-40s, wearing dark jeans and a black polo, he looked like someone who'd written code in the morning and closed deals in the afternoon, the kind of executive who actually understood what his engineers were talking about. "Wesley," he said, extending his hand, "I didn't expect you quite this soon." "I believe in efficient transitions," I said, shaking his firm grip. "My previous position had some structural problems." He chuckled and gestured toward a seating area overlooking the Austin skyline. "You could see the university campus from here, where my youngest was finishing her engineering degree. At least that tuition was almost done." "Coffee? Water? Something stronger?" Brian asked. "Coffee. Black. I need to stay sharp for whatever comes next." We sat down. I placed my box of personal belongings on the floor between us. "Let's skip the corporate small talk," Brian said, leaning back in his chair. "We've been trying to acquire Logiflow for 8 months. Their financial reports look solid, customer retention is decent, but every time our engineers examine their back-end systems, we get mixed signals. The documentation says one thing, the actual performance tells a different story. That would be my work versus everything else," I said. "I built the main processing engine 3 years ago when their old system couldn't handle the growth. It's what manages the heavy lifting: order processing, traffic management, data security. Without it, Logiflow is just a pretty website that can't actually do anything." Brian raised an eyebrow. "And you're here because—" Ashley Brennan, the new CTO, decided to modernize the codebase about an hour ago. She deleted the entire main processing engine. All of it. Gone. Brian let out a low whistle. He didn't look horrified. He looked like a businessman who'd just been handed inside information about a competitor's weakness. "So if we complete the acquisition tomorrow," he said slowly, "we'd be buying an empty shell." "You'd be buying a website that displays error messages," I corrected. "The customer data is still there, but the engine that processes it, deleted. And I'm the only person who knows how to rebuild it properly." Brian smiled, and it was genuine. "Wesley, I'm going to be honest with you. We don't want Logiflow's brand or their office space in that converted warehouse. We want the underlying technology to power our new supply chain platform for defense contractors. We were planning to scrap everything else anyway." He pulled out a tablet and slid it across the coffee table. "This is Project Eagle. It's what we wanted Logiflow's technology for. Since their technology is currently self-destructing, why don't we build it from scratch with the architect who actually knows what he's doing? I looked at the specifications on the screen. It was a high-volume transaction processing system for military logistics. It needed speed, security, and absolute reliability. Everything I'd spent 15 years perfecting for a company that had just thrown it away like yesterday's newspaper. You want me to rebuild it better? I said. I want you to head up Project Eagle as senior architect, Brian said. Full equity package, double your Logiflow salary, team of your choosing, complete technical control. And Wesley? He leaned forward. No family members on the executive team. We hire based on ability, not last names. I studied the tablet. I could see the system architecture forming in my mind already. Clean slate, no legacy patches, no quick fixes to impress sales demos, just solid engineering from the ground up. What happens to the Logiflow acquisition? I asked. Brian tapped the table. We have a material adverse change clause in our letter of intent. If the technology degrades significantly during our review period, we can walk away with no penalty. He looked at me directly. Would you say deleting the core system constitutes significant degradation? I thought about the error logs that were probably flooding Lance's monitors right now. I thought about Ashley frantically clicking refresh buttons that wouldn't help. I thought about the cloud bills that were racking up by the minute as broken servers spun up and died in an endless loop. I'd say the technology no longer exists, I said. Then we walk, Brian said, extending his hand. Welcome to Apex, Wesley. As I shook his hand, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it. I knew exactly what it was. The system crash had started. The billing meters were spinning like slot machine wheels. The fires were burning bright and hot. And for the first time in 15 years, I didn't have to grab a fire extinguisher and run toward the flames. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. Text from Lance. Holy hell, Wesley. AWS charges hit $8,000 in the last hour. Ashley's locked out of her own admin panel. She's calling everyone asking for the master password. I turned the phone face down and picked up my coffee. It was excellent coffee. The kind you can afford when your company actually makes money instead of just burning through it. So, Brian said, when can you start? How about right now? The first week at Apex was like stepping out of a noisy construction site into a quiet library. People actually listened in meetings. Code reviews were about the code, not about who had the biggest ego. When I requested server resources, I got an email back in 15 minutes. Approved. Anything else you need? It felt like working for grown-ups again. Meanwhile, my phone had become a window into hell. I hadn't blocked Lance or Shane. I needed to know they were okay. And honestly, a small part of me needed to see how bad it was getting. Tuesday, 3:45 p.m. Lance. AWS bill hit. $15,000. Ashley tries to call Amazon to dispute the charges. They explained how cloud billing works. She hung up and cried in the supply closet. Wednesday, 6:20 a.m. Shane. Haven't slept in 2 days. Every time we patch one thing, 5 other systems break. Ashley asked if we can Control-Z the whole server. I'm updating my resume. Thursday evening, I got a text from Nicole Stevens, our QA manager. Emergency meeting tomorrow. They're planning to fake the Apex demo with static data files. It's fraud, Wesley. Complete fraud. I forwarded that message to Brian with a simple note. Ask them to show last quarter's transaction volume during the demo. Their fake data only covers this month. Brian replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Friday morning came with typical Texas heat. I was in a productive coding session with my new Apex team. 2 senior developers I'd handpicked who actually knew what they were doing. We were building the user login system for Project Eagle, and it was beautiful. Clean code, proper testing, no shortcuts. But I kept a messaging window open to my old team. I'd named our group chat Lifeboat. 10:15 a.m. Nicole, Apex team is here. 3 executives, 2 lawyers, 1 technical auditor. Ashley's sweating through her blazer. Jason looks like he's going to have a heart attack. 10:30 a.m. Shane. Demo starting. Ashley's driving the presentation. She's clicking through screens saying, "Look how fast our system responds." Yeah, because it's loading from local files. 10:35 a.m. Lance. Apex technical guy just asked to see order processing from last quarter. Ashley froze. She's saying, "Well, we archive historical data for performance optimization." 10:40 a.m. Nicole. They're not buying it. Apex lawyer said, please unarchive that data now. Ashley's typing frantically into the browser console. In front of them. 10:45 a.m. Shane. Error 500. Massive red box on the screen. System unavailable. Ashley's shouting that it's the Wi-Fi, that Apex's guest network is interfering with our algorithms. I chuckled at that one. Algorithms don't care about Wi-Fi when you're loading static files. 10:50 a.m. Lance. It's over. Apex technical auditor just said, this application isn't making any network requests. We're monitoring all traffic. This is a fake demonstration. 10:55 a.m. Nicole. Apex team packed up and left, didn't even say goodbye. Just, we'll be in touch. Jason looks like someone killed his dog. 11 a.m. Shane. Jason confronted Ashley in front of everyone. Where's Wesley's system? Where's the backup? Ashley said, I told you, Uncle Jason. I modernized it. 11:05 a.m. Shane. Jason just fired Ashley. Security escorted her out. She was screaming about how this was all my fault for sabotaging her vision. I closed the chat window. The $180 million acquisition had died in 45 minutes because a 26-year-old with an MBA thought she could outsmart 15 years of engineering expertise. Brian walked into my office an hour later, carrying 2 cups of that excellent coffee. You were right about everything, he said, handing me a cup. Complete fraud. They tried to fake transaction data with spreadsheet files. What happens now? We formally withdrew our acquisition offer this morning. Our legal team is documenting their breach of good faith. 8 months of due diligence wasted. Brian sat down and smiled. But on the bright side, we're building something much better with Project Eagle. What about Jason and the company? Jason called me personally as we were leaving. Asked if I knew where you'd gone. Said there was a terrible misunderstanding about your employment status. Brian laughed. I told him good engineers always land on their feet. 3 months later, Project Eagle went live. No fanfare, no press releases announcing revolutionary breakthroughs. Just a system that worked, deployed at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I stood in Apex's operations center with my team, including Shane, Lance, and Nicole, who'd all jumped ship from the sinking Logiflow. Traffic's climbing steadily, Shane reported from his monitoring station. We just onboarded Megacorp Industries. Megacorp had been Logiflow's biggest client. They'd terminated their contract the week Logiflow filed for Chapter 11, bankruptcy protection. Response times? I asked. Average 300 milliseconds, Lance said, grinning. Rock solid. No errors, no crashes, no emergency midnight phone calls. Financial metrics? We're processing $2 million in transactions per day, Nicole reported. 0 fraud incidents, 0 data breaches, 99.9% uptime. Around 4 a.m., Brian appeared with a bottle of champagne. Congratulations, he said, popping the cork. The board's thrilled. Stock price jumped 12% on the launch announcement alone. He poured glasses for the whole team. You know what's interesting? We got a call from the firm liquidating Logiflow's assets. They're auctioning off the intellectual property. How much? I asked. $50,000 for everything, Brian laughed. The code, the client list, the office furniture. Nobody wants broken technology. Their biggest former clients are already working with us. I took a sip of champagne. It tasted like justice served at the proper temperature. What happened to Ashley and Jason? Ashley's LinkedIn says she's exploring opportunities in cryptocurrency consulting. Jason lost his house. The investors sued him for gross negligence. Brian shrugged. Sometimes gravity works slowly, but it always works. 6 months later, I got one final notification. Ashley Brennan had viewed my LinkedIn profile. My title now read Senior Architect, Apex Industries, leading $200 million defense contract implementation. I didn't view her profile back. I just smiled and closed my laptop. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something better and letting the world see the difference. Ashley deleted 15 years of my work with a mouse click, but she couldn't delete 15 years of knowledge. And that's the thing about real expertise. You can fire the engineer, but the engineering lives on in someone who respects it. Project Eagle processed its millionth transaction that day, error-free, on time, under budget, just the way it should be.